The task that I did with the children was specific to story writing, so imaginative narrative. And my objective was to build on a lot of work that we had done previous, which was to dissect stories, to look at all of the parts of story so that when they go to write, they know that they're capturing all those pieces that a real author puts in their trade book. So you're writing your book. Don't forget the pieces that make a book a really good story and interesting to your audience. I presented the students with the beginning of a wordless 3D sort of story.
There was a girl, and then there's a wishing well. She had a coin, and then she was gonna put it in the wishing well, but then these two guys that have like music stuff, they were doing it, and they're wondering if they can have that coin so they can play music. But then that girl got frustrated, and then she got scared.
I paused it at the climax, and I asked the kids to predict what could happen next.
We had to predict what was going to happen.
So also doing some problem solving and making predictions at the same time, which I think are very important for comprehension. Oral language and communication, and that talking through story is really, really valuable before actually putting pen to paper. I worked with a partner to come up with all the possible things that seemed pretty obvious, and then I challenged them to think of something that might seem a little kind of out of the ordinary that could happen. So that's when they got to kind of be creative, and they were excited. And then they worked to storyboard the ending, so the climax, and then we talked about, so when there's a problem in a story and your character always has a goal, their goal is to solve the problem, what are some things that are going to get in the way to make it kind of exciting for them to finish it up? So then we finished the story, and they, pictured and then told the story to the group. And it was really interesting that they all came up with something unique and different, and they got to feel like they were writers, but also not sort of alone in that process. I feel very strongly, and I tell my students this too, that writing isn't just what happens on the paper. Writing is a creative process where the conversation and the ideas and that dialogue between partners in writing a piece is just as important. So the student who maybe isn't as strong in actually recording, they were very much involved with myself and their partner and or another adult in the room to contribute to the story. Actual idea of being an author and creating a story from beginning to end and thinking about all of those elements, the kids were all involved in that process of creating.
The little girl go to the store, will buy 2 bags of chips. Then she will give the 2 bags of chips to the drummer and violinist. They are happy. Started to sing. They're all nice to each other.
Conferencing for me is like immediate feedback with the kids, so we can talk about where they're at and what they're writing. I'm able to ask them questions to kind of probe their process, and there's an opportunity for me to give them some assessment for learning in that moment so then they can continue to work on their piece. So if the girl decides to keep the coin to herself, which is one of your ideas, what do you think will happen next?
She might buy something with her coin.
Okay. What do you think the violinist and the drummer might do?
Still fight? No, be sad that they didn't get a coin.
Okay. So you think they might keep fighting, or they might be sad?
Yes.
Okay. Then what I want you to think about next is, how will the story end? What will the last scene look like?
They'll all be friends, be nice to each other.
Do you think she's going to buy everybody something with the coin then? Ooh, that's a really creative idea. I like it. Okay, let's work on that. We created a rubric together as a class and talked about what would we be looking for, and we tried to use real professional writer kind of terminology. So we had like a publisher and editor, and talked about when you're a writer, you have to bring your work to somebody who's going to like look at it and make sure that all of these important things are included in your writing. So the story has to make sense, and it needs to be exciting and interesting, because you're bringing into the ending of your story. So you want to leave your reader with something exciting. And then, of course, the typical editing type stuff, like did you check your spelling and your capitals and periods? And so the kids worked through their rubric, and they found sort of the areas where they need to improve.
Good, your writing was good and stuff, you can put like a check mark and then a sticker, and then if it needs some work, you put a sticker right there. This means if you need better work at reading, or if you're done, if you did your work perfectly.
With this reading, I think it was really kind of a holistic approach to reading and writing and the connection of the two. The students were really engaged. I think for one thing, removing words from the story when they were listening put all of the kids too in a place where they could feel successful. They're making sense of the story without having to read words or listen to words. So it was all images, and the power of image too in telling story, I think got them really excited, and nobody felt that it wasn't approachable to them. They could interact with that work and feel successful, because it was amazing. The kids watching this video, they were glued to it, and then the fact that I stopped it, they were, oh, what's going to happen? When are you going to show us the end? When you finish writing your end, then we can share the end that the original, author of that story was, thinking. What this did for the kids was allow them to see themselves as authors, so that they could not feel like they were trying to write a story for somebody, but to write a story for their own enjoyment, and hopefully to entertain somebody else too with their imaginative narrative.